Hello, fellow weirdos. I'm Andy Negative, and today I'm going to show you how to write a pop punk song. All right, weirdos, before we jump in, please take a second to just obliterate that like button for the YouTube algorithm. In this video, I'm going to break down my new song, Weird Times, and show you how I went about writing a pop punk song that's like modern-ish or whatever. You can check out the song down below. There'll be a link to the full thing on my Spotify. Go give me a follow there if that's something that you're into. But before we do that, I just want to take 1 second to say thank you to this video's sponsor, my community over on Patreon, The Weirdo Cult. They're these wonderful people that have been helping support me through these crazy times we're living in. And if you want to help support me further, I have a Patreon. You can join if you want to. I'll tell you all about it at the end of the video. Just know it's a thing you can do if you want to. All right, we're just going to break into this and go through bit by bit. We're going to look at the DAW and we're going to go through everything and kind of just talk about all the parts in the song and kind of how I did the thing. So let's jump into Studio One and do the voodoo that we do. So poo-poo. There you can see this is the entire song right here, taking up all the space, everything, including even the scratch tracks at the beginning. So what I would start out with normally is I would start out with an acoustic demo, which is how I frequently write a lot of my songs. So I recorded just a demo on my phone when I wrote the song on an acoustic guitar, and then I kind of spent some time after getting the arrangement and the lyrics together and the chord progression. I spent some time figuring out the main riff because I knew I wanted the main riff to be a major portion of this song, and the main riff is just going to be the tag melody or whatever, which I think is kind of the big thing for me in this song. But to start out, I would break down and I would start with these scratch tracks. You get the idea. It's nothing special. It's just some quickly tracked guitars and vocals to give the illusion of a song. And then I'll use that scratch to start building up the drums and writing the bass and all the harmonies and everything so that everything's working in tandem. Once I know kind of like the chord progression and the riffs I want to do and the vocal melody and the vocal delivery, then I can kind of build from there, which is my general approach to writing songs so that all of the instruments work together, which to me is the most important thing. I want all the instruments to be a tight, cohesive unit that exemplifies certain elements. So if there's something I want to stand out in the vocals, I can write the instruments around supporting that. Or if there's something I want to stand out in the guitars, I can write the other instruments to support that. So that's how I'll start. And you can see it's pretty simple. It's straightforward. Just scratched out a bunch of stuff up here and it's all broken up, and I just do it bit by bit until I get something. Then I'll go through and I'll write to the drums to the song. As we can see here, I've printed it down now, but I do all of my writing in Superior 3. It's a great program that's really fun to do. As you can see, I'll just go through, I'll go here bit by bit and just kind of figure out what I want in terms of arrangements. I'll write in parts, or I'll use the grooves section up here to find stuff that fits kind of the vibe I want, and then I'll alter it to make it unique to what I want. And then you've got something like this. Drums, you know, they sound like drums. And then I'll go through and I'll record guitars, get them all comped together into something I like. Then I'll put together a bass track that I'm happy with, do some extra guitars, lead guitars, stuff like that. Then I'll go through and I'll do vocals, comp those all together, and then I'll do harmonies, and then I kind of put it all together. That's the layout of kind of how I would approach writing and creating a song like this. And then we'll just kind of go through bit by bit, and I'll talk about kind of what I did in each section and how I made each section sound the way that I did. The major crux being that I build up from an idea, an arrangement, and melody and lyrics, and then build up from there so that all the instruments work in tandem to support each other and try to make a cool, cohesive unit of music by writing all of the instruments together to try to make something interesting and unique. So we'll go through section by section, and I'll just talk about each individual element of the song as we do. This is the intro. So for the intro, I wanted something that was very much like Dumpweed. I knew in my head that I wanted to make like a big, powerful riff version of what would be the melody of the song, and I wanted to hit in a big way. So that was kind of the approach. So it's kind of the guitars playing the riff with some big smashy drums, the bass just like ringing out big notes underneath it. And then when the drums pick up, I brought in some guitars just playing the same thing as the bass underneath, just kind of a rhythm-y thing. So they're doing different stuff. I think it gives a lot of power and makes it pretty cool. And then there's kind of this turn. And that was like a Zelda inspired thing. It got in my head while I was writing the song initially, and I don't know, I think it sounds really cool, and I think it fit kind of the vibe I was going for, which is to kind of break things up a little bit with this weird chord that is a little suspended or something, just a little discombobulated. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I like it. I think it's a fun little turnaround. And then we have the first verse. What do you get when you cross an overactive imagination with a heart that feels? And for that part, I wanted to go from like this big, taking up as much space as possible with these big riffs, and then just like really make it as tight as possible. So the drums that you're hearing are actually just it's just like one trash mic off Superior 3, just all by itself, just like a really not even good sounding mic. And then I EQ'd it a little bit more to give it that kind of like really mid-rangey sound. There's a guitar just strumming the chords while I'm singing that line, and then it's like a really filtered version of my voice because I wanted it to seem really small so that I could just get that sense of just like things being weird. I wanted to create a lot of dynamics. With a heart that feels lost. I must confess. Then I hit with these big chords on either side to kind of fill up all that space and be like, oh, it hits you really hard in the face. Like, oh, here we go. We're into the next part of the song now, which is just the rest of the verse, basically. I must confess that I'm spending most of my time. And in this section, I started taking the main melody idea, which is going to be the chorus idea that we've already heard as the guitar riff, and I started incorporating it in different instruments. So that's something that I did with this song to kind of reinforce the attitude of what I'm trying to say. Is I have this riff that kind of just keeps happening throughout the course of the song, and it keeps popping up in different places. The general idea being that the song is about kind of the weird way that the world is right now and how we're all stuck at home, and in a lot of ways every day is kind of the same over and over and over again, and no matter what you do you can't get away from it. So having this motif, this musical motif that kind of keeps popping up to reinforce that idea in your head that you're still always kind of in the same space even when it's not happening, when it comes back it reminds you like, oh, we're still here. My eyesight's not the best. Even that harmony there, and I've reinforced it with some piano, is a play off of the main musical motif. So it's all about just like reinforcing that you can't get away from this musical motif idea as possible. But the whole world is going crazy. I wanted to add some like breakdown-y stuff into it because I was listening to a lot of Bayside, and there's some really cool stuff in the newer Bayside music off on Interrobang, and I wanted to kind of do my little approach to that, which is to throw in these kind of breakdown moments, a little like Bayside and A Day to Remember, just thrown in here into some easy core moments, but without going into a full breakdown. Just outside my front door. I really love big harmonies. I like multi-part harmonies. So this is an example of just having a 3-part harmony that's each voice coming in as the note rises. It's just to add a little bit of excitement to the bit. And then we've got our chorus. Weird times with you. Weird times. And I switched up the rhythm to make it a little bit different to catch you off guard. So it starts doing this staccato slamming thing just to be a little bit different and not be just a typical punk song that's just like rolling all the way through as fast and as powerfully as possible. And then you hear this is the fullest realization of the motif, which is the chorus lyrics, the words weird times and this melody coupled together is the full motif. You've kind of been led to this motif, so when you get to it finally, it's kind of relieving because you get the whole entire thing. And then we go back into the guitar riff. There's a synth sound there. It's this really bit crushed synth to try to just like, I don't know, just spice things up and make it, I don't know, just a little weird, make it a little computery. And then we come into the next verse here.
What do you get when you're stuck between a rock and a hard place? And every day feels the goddamn same.
But the guitar part in this is actually really, really complicated. It's really hard to play. I'm just gonna solo this guitar part for a second because it's pretty nuts. That's really hard to play. It involves a lot of like weird hand movements and it's kind of these like weird chords that you have to kind of get this like really gross grip on to do. I'm really stoked about kind of how it sounds. And then I have this part where I'm talking about how every day feels the same. And then I have this riff kind of repeat itself almost as if it's responding to that same.
I must confess that I'm probably drinking too much in. Well, there's no one else.
And if you listen, you can hear that the guitar on the right-hand side is doing another kind of iteration on the main motif. It's a bit more, that's actually kind of a tapping part.
Drinking too much in. Well, there's no one else to blame except myself. This loneliness is driving.
Yeah, that's a variation on the main motif, so you don't quite get away from it ever. And we're back into the pre-chorus again.
And I'm trying not to be lazy.
A little more of that easy chord goodness just to make you feel good.
In here on the floor.
And then instead of just doing what I did in the first pre-chorus by having it be the same harmony build, I did a different 3-part harmony that's happening all at the same time, and they're moving in different directions. So they're contrapuntal, which means that one voice is moving one direction and another voice is moving another direction. It's a musical term for having them move in different directions. But basically there's 2 voices going up and then a third harmony that's moving down. So they kind of do this thing where they pass like this, just adds a little bit of excitement. And then we're back to the next chorus.
Weird times, weird times, weird times with you. Weird times, weird times, weird times.
And for the next chorus, instead of just repeating the same kind of staccato thing, I decided to switch it up and make it more of like a straightforward kind of pop punk, punk rock rhythm, just to add some excitement and make the chorus a little different. You know, it's still the same chorus, the same melodic motif, but it's presented in a different way. So you're not getting bored of this motif that just keeps happening over and over and over again through the entire song. It was just my way of spicing things up a little bit. And you've basically just got a guitar on one side playing the rhythm, a guitar on the other side playing again, another version of the motif, and the drums are just hammering away underneath. Then we have our breakdown. I think it's kind of cool to go from big to small. I like big dynamic changes. So to go from all of these instruments playing, really reinforcing the melodic motif, and then taking it all away and just have something really, really small that draws the ear in a little bit. And it's a very mid-rangey sound that just pokes right through and hopefully catches your attention. And then what happens next is you can do things like this. And when it hits, it's really big and powerful because you've gone from this kind of like large to small and back up to large again. You prime the ear so that when the big thing comes in, it sounds even bigger, which is kind of always my goal, is to create these like dynamic moments.
And I'm trying to keep up, but my hard drive crashed. That's just my luck. And I'm trying to keep up, but my hard drive crashed. That's just my luck. And I'm trying to keep up, but my hard drive crashed. That's just my luck.
So this whole entire section right here is just kind of a little love letter to Bayside. There's this song off Interrobang called Bury Me, and it's a super, super amazing song, really, really cool. And in the middle section, there's this really rad harmonized section that they do. And it's not necessarily like this, but this was kind of my attempt to create something that's in the vein of this kind of like overly harmonized. I really tuned the vocals at this point too, just to get the same kind of like almost roboticness to it. And then the instruments all kind of happening in this punchy way. It's meant to come across as a little robotic because we're talking about how your hard drives crashed, and it's all about, you know, being stuck in front of computers all day and stuff like that. So I was kind of going for a very kind of robotic, aggressive kind of like punchy thing, and it's definitely trying to be Bayside just a little bit, or holding the inspiration as close out as I possibly can. So for that, I basically did a bunch of chops and tuned it down, with the idea being it's as if the hard drive has crashed, right, in mid listening to song, which I thought was pretty clever. And then I bit crushed the hell out of it, just to try to make it interesting. And leading up to this moment here, I'll show you, it kind of leads into this. This really heavily bit crushed version of the chorus idea. So it's almost like you can hear it, but even it's a little hard to understand a little bit. And throughout the course of the song, I was throwing in these kind of elements like the synth, and there's a few like delay throws I did that were like really bit crushed. And it's kind of like prep your brain for this idea that this big breakdown doesn't come out of nowhere. And then through that little breakdown, again, that's another one of these dynamic shifts where now it goes from big and full to like really, really sparse and quiet and even a little hard to hear, really lo-fi, so that when we come back in, we get... So like bring back in the kind of faster punk rock rhythm, and this time I have a couple other instruments reinforcing the melodic idea. There's a piano doing some of the guitar riff with the guitar. I also brought in some strings that are doing a harmony part to the melodic motif, which you can hear. Really just to add some spiciness to it. This is kind of the moment with the most harmonies in the song, which is a very common thing that I do when I'm writing songs. I'll have these big moments at the very end of the song where all the harmonies have built up and there's like a big 3 or 4 part harmony going on to support behind the main vocal, just to add some interest, so that if you're repeating an idea like this, it's the similar kind of chorus as earlier. It's still a different variation on that same kind of chorus. And then we get to the last section, where I just pretty much bring back that staccato driving forward version of the chorus with the riff going on and the vocals, and there's these big harmonies. So it's kind of like, this is the ultimate moment of hearing the melodic motif in its most fullest, most complete version that you get in the entire song at the very end. So we've basically been working our way from just some guitars playing the motif to literally everything is reinforcing this giant version, the biggest version possible of this motif that I could create with what I had available to me, and then we bring it out to our end. And I brought back the first verse as like just to change things up a little bit. I like to do that sometimes, where I'll take another lyrical idea from the song that I really like that isn't the main tag, and I'll bring it into the end. That's a very very common thing right now in a lot of pop songs, and I like to steal that idea and put it into my stuff. It just gives maybe a lyrical note that I liked a little bit more emphasis at the end to just reinforce that I think that it's a good line. So yeah, and then we get our big finale. Where we brought back that turn one last time just to spice things up at the very end of the song, and then it just glitches out to complete it. So yeah, that's pretty much the rundown of how I approached it. Started with a rough idea of an arrangement on my phone with an acoustic guitar and a vocal, came and wrote a riff based off the melodic idea, got some guitars down, wrote some drums, recorded some instruments, and this is pretty much how I came up with it. The crux of the entire thing being that I wanted to take this musical motif that kind of expressed how things are weird and repetitive, and have it continue to happen throughout the course of the song, coming in and out, always being there, kind of eating away at your subconscious, reminding you that every day is basically the same. And even if you do find something that's a little different to do, you start reading a different book or a new movie to watch or whatever, you go out for a walk, you're eventually going to come home and realize that we're still all stuck at home with nothing to do, and every day kind of has bled into one another, and it's all kind of the same. And then you get this middle section where everything just goes horribly wrong because your hard drive crashes, and then you come back out of it to find you're still in the same place. It's just, you've just gotten used to it by now, because the new normal is the melodic motif at the end of the song. All right, so that's it for this video. If you found this this interesting, informative, or insightful, please just obliterate that like button for the YouTube algorithm and do a little subscribe to the channel. Let me know if you found this useful or interesting. If you like to use melodic motifs in your music, I'd love to hear more about them and how you like to adapt those motifs over the course of a song. As I said at the beginning, I would like to say a quick thank you to my wonderful community over on Patreon, the Weirdo Cult. They've been helping to support me through this crazy new normal that we live in, trying to be a content creator and to afford the coffee necessary to do so. And I love them to bits. They're the best. If you would like to support me in my creative endeavors further, please consider joining the Weirdo Cult over on Patreon. My community gets early access to my content, exclusive music that you can't get anywhere else, and they have their names included at the ends of all my videos, which you'll see immediately following this. I'm Andy Negative, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Bye!
What do you get when you're stuck between a rock and a hard place? And every day feels the goddamn same. I must confess that I'm probably drinking too much in. Well, there's no one else to blame except myself, 'cause loneliness is driving me